Welcome to our webinar. Today we are with one of our Reinvention clients at SoulSalt Inc. We are with Julie McLaughlin Perez, and we're discussing her personal and professional reinvention. And she has quite a unique story, as are all reinvention stories. You can see Julie here with a smile on her face. And where most of the stories occur when people comes into a reinvention encounter with SoulSalt Inc. is to get an idea of where they've been and an idea of where they want to go. And then also we dive into studying a basic textbook sort of reading project. Generally we pick the book Working Identity by Hermione Ibarra out of Harvard. But as you can see here, Julie's all smiles. And Julie, whether your personal journey is for reinvention of personal and professional, sometimes there's a daydream, a spoken desire, or an unspoken desire that really helps you entertain the idea of reinventing yourself. And before we jump into some formal questions that I've already sent you, I'm just wondering, what was happening in your life that nudged you to say, I need to change, I need to reinvent my working identity and parts of my personal identity? Can you share with us?
I would be happy to share with you. It's interesting that two things actually happened. They coincided at the same time with my personal life and with my working life. So it was more than a little bit of a nudge that everything was going to change kind of all at once. And personally, I had been in business with my husband, and we chose to go our separate ways. Although I'm blessed that we remain great friends, and we sold our business at the same time. So we literally had, I had a personal change and a business change. And I found myself saying, I have a whole future ahead of me and lots of opportunities. And then I realized I didn't know what any of them were.
So, yeah, the sky is blue and everything's open, and it was like, okay, but where do I start and what are they? Right?
Exactly. It seemed all great in the thinking before it all happened, and then we literally signed some papers, sold a business, and I woke up one morning and I didn't have a job. And I was like,
Yeah.
And it was a different economy out there also. So I was not actually, I feel blessed that I was not necessarily so arrogant, but I felt I've got great skill sets, I've got a great resume, or, I've got a good work history here. This shouldn't be that difficult. And yet, it was actually a little bit difficult.
Yeah, the economy is brand new. And that's one reason that reinvention is so critical right now. And so, just to reiterate, this is where a lot of people come into working with us. Something in their personal life, huge shift, maybe in their most primary relationship, or maybe they now need to be a breadwinner. Something happens and there's a shift there, and it's quite often corresponding with a shift in the professional life. So you're not the Lone Ranger. What we did first, even before you decided to come on a retreat, and this is one of the options we have at SoulSalt, you can be part of a group coaching endeavor for reinvention. You can do one-to-one coaching, or like you picked to do a combination where we met prior to you coming out. You did a 2-day intensive retreat here in Salt Lake City. Then you went home and we had some follow-up calls. That was the mode you picked, and maybe you could speak to that. How come that one was the option for you?
It was interesting as I started to speak to people about, here I am, how exciting is this? I've got a new start. I was met with some resistance, and people said, oh my gosh, do you know how hard it is to find a job? And it's not the same, and you need to know people. And I was really quite shocked by the kind of the negativity that I was hearing, because I was looking at it as an adventure. And so I realized I'm going to have to do things a little bit differently. This isn't just a matter of going online and sending out resumes or filling out applications. It's a different world. And I was very blessed to meet one of your people that you work with, and she and I had a very similar situation, made a great connection, and she, connected me with you, and I felt that I wanted to kind of fast track it a little bit. And one of the learnings was that you can't actually fast track this process. But in my mind at the time, I thought I could, and that's what I had wanted to do. So, you know, I got to read the book, and then I wanted to meet with you, you know, personally, as I said, to kind of get a leg up. But I got so much more.
You did get a lot, and I want to say that the main thing here is for people who will be listening to this is that you get out of it how open and honest you are in putting yourself into it, and you did that, and you did get a leg up. We got everything we needed to complete that we usually do in 6 weeks in the process of you coming out for the retreat. So we could have extended it over a 6-week period, but you kind of got a booster, and it worked. You had some free time that you could come out. So we started you on your way before you even got to Salt Lake by reading the book Working Identity, Unconventional Strategies for Reinventing Your Career, which is typically the Bible, in my opinion right now, of how an individual reinvents. What did you take from it when you were reading through the book?
That book was amazing because the first thing that it made me realize was, one, what I was going through was normal, that I wasn't alone, and there was just a new hope, and that these stories were real. This wasn't just a situational, hypothetical, kind of a mock-up that they were doing in a university. These were actual fact-based, real-life stories, and the way that people shared with it, the way that they wrote it was all personalized, so there wasn't a format. So each time you were able to get into, really feel the emotion and go through the process with them. And that was just, you know, amazing. You know, and there were, of course, the big ones, the man who joined the monastery and became a monk, but then there were some that were just very realistic, of people that I could identify with, and I think a lot of people can, that, you know, had just fallen into a career and had stayed with it for many years, and then either through their own transition at work or layoffs, or just by their own personal voice kind of gnawing at the back of them, and said, you know, that something has to change. And that they were willing to go through this process and make the change. And it was great. And the other part of the book that I really got, that there was a plan for it, you know, and that it can be fun, it can be exciting along the way, and it really changed, and I was able to tune out, you know, the naysayers that I had told you that I'd heard before, and I didn't view it as something that was going to be hard. I viewed it as an adventure, and it was going to be a journey and a process, and that made it exciting.
Well, I think that's exactly the point. One of the reasons your reinvention is so successful is you're seeing it as an adventure and as a journey. You're allowing yourself to be excited. At the same time, it's a little frightening and you feel vulnerable. The reality is there are strategies that those of us who have been doing this for quite some time now, and for me, I'm going into 12 years of doing this, and also having reinvented myself at least 7 times professionally and 4 times personally. It's like, this is a process that has strategies and tools, and though every person's path is unique, like the case studies that you are talking about, Julie, there's a way through it, and there's a method to the madness. Would you agree?
Absolutely, and that was the best part. There was a strategy, and there was a plan, and a format, so to speak, even though it was going to change, and it wasn't necessarily going to be the same plan for everybody. Yeah. And yet, you know, the fundamental thing, and this is what I'm sharing on the screen right now, is we want people, when they come into the reinvention engagements with SoulSalt, to realize that they are an entire opportunity of possibility. They're an entire being full of many different working identities, like the gumball machine. People have many things inside of them through the process of identifying their strengths, their intuitive hits, identifying the things they're passionate about, their experiences, the future that's bringing new opportunities and places where people are willing to see them. We're all more like a gumball machine, and it's about what sort of gumball do you want to pull out and play with for a while versus trying to search for that ominous sort of looking at where is the needle in the haystack. And you came into the process
very well open to the idea and receptive that there are a lot of possibilities and there's just not one right answer. So Julie, that was terrific. While you were here, we went through a lot of coaching exercises, and I'm wondering, what did you learn from the retreat that you think you went home with and you're using it now, and you picked it up while you were here in Salt Lake going through the retreat?
The retreat was life-changing. It really was. I'd never, first of all, physically been in that part of the country before, so to see mountains so close that I could reach out and touch them was just amazing. So it was really just a whole new environment, which was very helpful to me because it was really not just a metaphorical, I am changing and experiencing new things, I am actually experiencing new things. And that helped because what I learned when I was there, what I felt, there was a shift of letting go of what I thought I should be doing and of what I felt others felt I should be doing. And, you know, I know that I wrote a little bit about that when I was kind of going through the working identity, and there was just kind of these, you know, thoughts that we have when we're growing up and just messages that we receive that are, you know, subliminal, but they kind of stay with us. And all of a sudden I was faced with, I don't necessarily have to do what I thought I was supposed to do. It's not just about getting a job and getting benefits and having security, because security is more of an illusion. It was letting go of that. The second thing really for me was the letting go of that I'm too old to make these changes. I'm too old to reinvent myself. You know, I had to kick that to the curb very quickly. And seeing your amazing muscles helped with that too. It was pretty inspiring.
Yes, you can be in your 50s and still have muscles.
There's no limit, and I think that I had a limiting belief of I needed to make a few changes. The other part is just you don't have to change everything. There's parts of my core that are important to me that I value, and those don't have to change. In fact, they can actually be enhanced and brought out and be made a part of this process. And you helped me so much with that, because when I make that a foundation for this process, then the benefits and rewards of these experiments is not necessarily always the financial piece of it. It's just that sense of peace within myself in doing the right thing and being, you know, at one with it.
Right. And that's truly the gift of what we try to do in coaching, is let you see what's right about you, what should stay undaunted and immovable, which parts of you are part of your core character and competency base that can be foundational for you, and which things have the opportunity to move and shift and transfer, and which beliefs don't serve you anymore. So I was really proud of you. And then for those people who do come out to Salt Lake and do the reinvention, we'll give you an opportunity to start feeling this alignment with what's right with you and your core and your value system in terms of your body. Would you speak to what you gained from kind of getting aligned in the physical as well as in the spiritual and the mental?
Absolutely, and I wrote that down a little bit further. The other piece is really trusting the universe and trusting myself, or trusting yourself. The voice that had been talking to me, or kind of that feeling that it was kicking me in the gut, you know, it's happening for a reason, and it shouldn't be ignored. And that was a real big piece of that. The paying attention to your feelings. The physical piece was so important, and with that picture, I just remember the exercise so vividly, because again, in my head, limited beliefs, I had this feeling of I'm not flexible. You know, I'm genetically not made up to be flexible. You know, my mother wasn't flexible, my sisters aren't flexible. It was kind of a thing that we had in our head. But what I learned there was I can be flexible, and I can change my stance, and just a few of the standing up straight, and I guess not even standing up straight, that's an old terminology, but that being in alignment was so much better and freeing. So what I had thought, or had my perception was, I need to stand up straight, shoulders back, head on, and kind of present this outer self to the world. And when I present looking like that, I'll feel better. And it was actually a reverse. I was not, my posture was better when I was realigned, and you and Susan helped me really physically rearrange my seat and my stance. And I was in alignment, and it felt very not straight to me, but when we look in the mirror and we look at the pictures, I was.
Right.
It was mind-blowing. It really, it
well,
just was that shift of what I think isn't always the way things are.
Right, and that's exactly it. Julie, I couldn't say it better. One of the things we sometimes have to shift is the paradigm of how we think things should be, and what's alignment and what's right, and we have to kind of get ourselves righted into a position where we can't be pulled off track, and we can be in alignment. We can see what's good and right about us, and we can start to trust what we're seeing and drop off some of the old myths. And so, it's interesting, when you came in, you left with a lot of experiments, and that's one of the main things that we ask you to leave with, is using some of Hermione Ibarra's work and the strategies we give you. The premise is you can't think your way to the next identity. You have to experiment. You have to try things on. So you left with a whole list of things to start trying on, and before you even got out of Salt Lake, when you were at the airport, you actually got your first experiment. So why don't you talk about the experiments that you had when you left and what you've done with them, and how that first one turned out.
Yeah, that was amazing, and that, I was going to say it happened by mistake, but it didn't. It's, I sent a text message from the airport. I thought I was texting one person, and I said, I'm in Salt Lake City with my life coach. I'll be back tomorrow, and let's connect. And I realized that I had sent it to the wrong person, so I resent a text message saying to this person, no, I'm so sorry, wrong person, hope all is well with you. And he sent back a text message saying, I don't believe in mistakes, call me when you get back and let's have lunch. And the person I had inadvertently texted was a man who owns 15 hair salons and spas in the Washington, Virginia area. And he and I had met 2 years previous when I was in the process of selling the family business. And we got together for lunch, and basically what he said was, I don't have any open jobs for you, but I remember, when we were having our business conversations, and I liked your ideas, so, maybe I know somebody, but tell me what you're looking for. And
right.
I outlined, I need to inspire people, I need to coach, I need to motivate, I am inspired by the hair business, because it's an entrepreneurial business and you've got people that can really grow. And I said, but I'm fascinated by the growth of this business. And he said, come to my salon out here in Tyson's and tell me what you think of this concept that we have in the retail aspect of it. So I met him again, and I said, you've got a golden opportunity here. I said, you've got a retail space, and you've got a style bar, and you've got opportunity that you're just, based on what I'm sure the rent is costing you here versus the back, you've got great opportunity. And he said, why don't you write me up a proposal and tell me what you think? If this was your space and your job, what would you do? So I wrote this full proposal on what I would do with the business, and he, including, how much I would charge for it, et cetera, how much I'd pay myself. And I submitted it to him, and he said, you know what, it's great, let's do it. So my first experiment was really kind of like, wow, Lyn didn't say it was going to be that easy.
Well, I'm going to let you in on a secret, may I?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone who has picked, now 100% so far, every person who has picked to come out to Salt Lake for a retreat as their mode of starting this reinvention process has left Salt Lake with a contact similar to yours, where they had a huge door open. I don't know how come that's happening, and yet that's happening. Before they even get to the airport or while they're there, there's something that happens as they're exiting the retreat, so it's kind of fun to watch. I believe it's because people who really put the intention to do the work, it's intelligent, can be intense work, and yet it's your life. It's your next piece that's coming forward. So the idea, again, is to build a bridge. My mantra is earn while you're learning. So you've had one experiment where you've literally had a job, you've been earning money, and you discovered over a number of months that this was not the thing you wanted to do long term. This was indeed an experiment. So what's your next experiment? Do you know?
I do know, and I'm very excited about it. While I was in the process of this experiment, when I got there, I realized that the execution or the reality of what was my proposal, they didn't necessarily match. And that was it was a great learning for me. And so I had to reevaluate that. And so I said, okay, here's what I know about the salon business, that for me to be successful in the salon business, I need to do one of three things. I either need to own my own salon, which right now at this point in time financially is not feasible for me, but not out of the question in the future. Two,
right.
I need to then either strictly be a coach to a salon, which is, again, something that I was not prepared to do because, as you and I have talked about, I want to get certified in coaching, and there's a process to do with that. So that wasn't a viable option. Or three, in the future, again, I could partner with somebody that shares my belief and sense of values. And again, right, that was not something that was in front of me. So that being said, it looked like staying in the salon world right now was not going to be ideal for me because it was not fulfilling some of the needs that I had in terms of mentoring, coaching. I was able to fulfill the need of driving a business and creating something. So I fine-tuned what I was looking for, what I wanted in a job. I wanted versatility. I missed the cosmetic business. I wanted to be entrepreneurial. What I know about myself, I'll work 100 hours a week. Just don't ask me to do it from 8:30 to 3:30 every day. Allow me flexibility. And I wanted something new. I had a history with L'Oreal, and I had many connections there, but I wanted to branch out. I wanted that sense of not going back home, but taking another step, walking through fear, saying, I can join a new company. I can do this. And I was networking, I was talking to people, and I got a call from a girl that I used to work with, and Calvin Klein is a company. I'm sure we've all heard of Calvin Klein. And that company has launched a cosmetic line 3 times in the past during different times and through different distributions, and their last time on their own. They're attempting it for the 4th time now, and they're doing it through Coty Prestige Company, and they're doing it very differently. They're launching exclusively in Ulta stores, which in the cosmetic world, Sephora and Ulta have really taken off and are where you see cosmetic growth. When I first started, it was department stores and specialty stores that drove that business, and there's just a shift. So I spoke to the gentleman, and we met, and we had a great conversation, and it turns out that they've been so successful in opening these stores in April without any real field support and nobody in-store support that they were going to open in the rest of the Ulta stores around the country, and they were adding 5 new sales positions or support to develop this. And I was blessed that he offered me the job, and I have accepted. So on January 2nd, I will start this experiment.
Nice. And you'll be earning each time, right?
I'm going to be earning. And the nice thing about this one, in my last job, I worked for the man who had the salons, but it was kind of consulting. So I just worked on an hourly basis without any benefits. Now I'm in a corporation. So one of the things that was important to me at this point in my life is I wanted to be in a large corporation. Benefits were important. And here's, again, the things that just give me chills. My health benefits start on the very first day of the job. There's no waiting. There's a company car, again, because my territory is rather large, so I'll be saving money and putting the miles on the company car. And tuition reimbursement, which means after 3 months, which means after I get settled in the job and I kind of get comfortable, and if this experiment is working out nicely, I'll be able to then pursue the education piece and get the coaching piece certified.
Wow.
So there's a path to my dreams and
to the future, right?
yeah, for the future. So it's
Yeah.
the salary wasn't as great as I had hoped for, but he actually went to bat for me and got me a little bit more money, and it's sustainable, and
Nice.
and I can practice budgeting. So there's another great option.
Look at that opportunity.
And it's a big corporation, and I feel great about it. When I spoke with the vice president, she said, you know, this is a lateral move for you. It looks like paper to paper. And I said, I look at it, I thank you for that she said I was overqualified. And I said, I think it's a great opportunity for me to learn a whole new type of the business and get in with a corporation that, you know, when we see what my strengths are, what I can do, you know, there's room to move here. And they've just moved into the top 10 cosmetic company. So, so they're growing. So I'm excited.
Wow. And again, I want to point out to anyone who's listening, this is serious work. This is intelligent and calculated and strategic work that we do together, and yet it only takes life, like you're seeing with Julie. When the individual who's reinventing stays in the affirmative and can see the opportunity and can allow it to flow like you have, because this is not like putting a target on the wall and saying, I'm going to reinvent and become A, B, and C. It's more like a career transition has this nonlinear sort of pattern to it, like we're showing on the screen. And one thing that happened in your first experiment is you learned some things you really want to go back and do at some point. Owning a salon is up there as an idea for a new, fully reinvented identity. And along with that, the coaching piece. And the next experiment is leading you toward that and probably opening up your mind and your eyes to things you wouldn't have seen before. Can you talk a little bit about when we say it's a nonlinear sort of wandering and experimentation? Is there anything else you want to add to that, Julie, from your end of it?
Absolutely. There were days in the beginning of my first experiment that I was a little frustrated, and quitting wasn't an option. And I would come home, and one of the other books that you and I worked with together while I was out there, or before I got there, was the Standout book.
Right.
Finding Your Edge and Win at Work. And what I would do is I would come home and I would reread that, because what I would do is I would reaffirm my strengths. You know, here's what I am good at. Here's where I excel. Oh, that's so cute. I just saw what's up on the screen. But I needed to see that, because I needed to remind myself that this was an experiment. This was not, I was not there forever.
Right.
So what could I do the next day to make that day better for myself and for the people that I was working with? And it was the shift of said that, you know, part of this coaching piece is how can I go in, you know, and make a difference to the people that I'm there. I need to regroup myself and say, okay, today wasn't, you know, as stellar a day, but I'm not going to let myself get down about it. I'm going to go home and I'm going to read this, and that helped to reaffirm it. And then I would take action steps. I would get online and I would send out resumes. I would look at jobs, and that even if I thought I don't necessarily want that job, I sent a resume. If I thought I like that job, I don't know if I could do that job, I would send a resume. I would always take an action. I would send an email to somebody I hadn't spoken to. I would pick up the phone. I would send a text. I would say, let's get together for coffee. We talked. So I was constantly linear, but constantly moving, and it wasn't necessarily in the same direction every day, but I was constantly taking action, you know, moving a muscle, changing my thoughts, so that it was something I felt like I was always doing something.
Right, moving a muscle, changing your thoughts, and that helps you not get stuck in a black hole of, well, this isn't my dream job, so it's boring and I'm stuck here. You saw it as a stepping stone, a place to make a contribution with the things that you were passionate about and the strengths you could exhibit at the moment, and then you kept the momentum going. And that's really key. For people listening, so far you've heard a couple of things. One, a standard book would be to read Working Identity by Ibarra out of the Harvard Business Press. Another one would be to know your strengths, and in this case, we determined to use the Standout book by Marcus Buckingham, which comes with an online assessment. And you just kept moving a muscle, and that's one reason that we do some physical things when you're here too, so that you can figure out, how do I stay aligned with my most optimal functional form? And then also, I think it's critical that you have a coach or you have a mentor, you have someone in your corner who can help you not get stuck in your head, or what I call your navel lint, where you're self-referenced, you get stuck in the mold and the grunge of what used to be, and you get lost in the fear, and you just become so self-referenced that you kind of implode. You need to have outside vantage points. So we've gone through a lot of information so far about your process, Julie. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you think would be really helpful for our listening audience?
It is really helpful to have somebody in your corner. I love that, because that made all the difference. I wouldn't have had those books or the resources or the ideas to do that if I hadn't been working with you. And it was, again, the universe works ideally that I would see something, I would hear something, and you would send me an email, or I would send something to you that just kept me connected. Because it was that thought process of, as you just said, this was not my dream job, but it was the job that I had then. And so I was able to own that. This is not my dream job, but it's the job I have now, so what I'm going to do with it. Or it's the experiment that I have now, and connecting with people. And what is amazing to me is the people that I have attracted in my life since this process. I don't have, I certainly still know the people that were kind of naysayers a year ago when I was doing this, but I've attracted new people with new interests that have a positive outlook, and we share the same ideals, and I've gotten into new things. So with that alignment, I've now gone into, I've taken some meditation classes, which I had never participated in before. And that was aligning, again, the quieting of my mind with my body, with my spirit.
Right.
But none of this really would have been possible without your help and the help of your team. It was just what you showed me, was the amazing piece of, how to work through this in the book, and there's a plan, and, the end result is obviously we're going to hopefully get you an experiment that pays your bills and gives you, a sustainable income. What you also gave me was you showed me how people work together, and that my ideals could shift, that you can you play. I believe that's one of your words. You can play at work and get things done, and it's that old adage, when you love what you do, it's not work. And I see that, and the nice thing is I see it on Facebook with your team, and I get a daily dose of, I'm not alone, and I don't want to be alone. The help doesn't stop now, to take somebody, because there's always going to be the next challenge and the next opportunity. And it's, it was breaking through that fear of the I need help, and then the asking for help, and then the relief when that help comes, and it's more of a partnership.
Right, it is. It's a partnership, and I really appreciate what you're saying about the team. We do love what we're doing. We're passionate about supporting people through reinvention. We know what a crucible that is and how it can be such a blend of anxiety and vulnerability, hope and opportunity. And so I'm glad that you noticed that, because we do love it, and it takes all of us to support people coming into our process, and we also want to stay in touch with you. And so we do have a Facebook group that's just for the reinventors. And just because you're on your way, you're not here to retreat, you never leave our heart. So I'm so grateful you can see that. Those are things that have just happened organically. We didn't sit down and plan, how do we look this way? We just came together, and this is how we are. So I'm glad you saw that. Julie, thank you for your time. Our desire is to post this so that other people who might get an insight into how to reinvent, they may come and work with us. And even if they don't, our desire is, more importantly, that people know there is a way. It is full of hope. It is full of excitement. It has joy. You don't have to starve in the process. And that it's a whole new world out there, and so why not have a whole new experience with it? So Julie,